Let's talk to someone who's definitely got a brain, the political editor of the Daily Express, Sam Lister. Hello, Sam.
Hi, Kevin.
Now, we know why Starmer wants to do this for obvious reasons. Young people tend to vote left. They tend to vote Labour rather than Tory. This is a manipulation of the electorate, obviously. It's pretty shameless, to be honest with you. And Rishi Sunak says he's doing this just to entrench his power. Now, and Rishi Sunak is clearly right. Do you feel, and I've heard left-wing commentators saying this today, that this is a kind of abuse of parliamentary power, to take your power as the incoming Prime Minister or even the incumbent Prime Minister and to pass a measure that is purely directed at prolonging and enshrining your own power, like, oh, let's let 16-year-olds vote. It is pretty shameless, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fascinating that one of the priorities for a Labour government is to extend the vote to 16-year-olds, which clearly they think would be advantageous to them. I think it might be a case of be careful what you wish for, though, because actually, as you were just discussing, many teenagers are quite radical, and maybe Keir Starmer's a bit too kind of centrist for them, and they'll be looking to the Green Party and to more kind of left-wing groups such as George Galloway's Workers' Party for Britain. So it might not actually be the great be-all and end-all that Keir Starmer thinks it is.
No, exactly. I was thinking just that. And we Patsy, who just left a message about her, and I'm quoting her slob of a daughter, who, by the way, sounds to me like she has some very sound opinions, but proving that just because she's 16, it doesn't mean she's some sort of rabid lefty. In fact, it sounds like Patsy's daughter's views are rather right-wing. And more, we're seeing this across Europe, that the young people of Europe are swinging right. So I think old Keir Starmer is rather thinking of his own youth, where everybody under the age of 25 was a communist, including him. In fact, he was a Trotskyist, wasn't he? But they're not really like that anymore. So you're right, it might rebound in his face. I hope it does. He deserves it. But I think it's a little bit disconcerting if this is what electoral victors are going to do. I mean, it doesn't have to be someone who's just won an election, but to sort of actively state this is one of the first things I'll do. I mean, it's the, to take it to a ludicrous extreme, it's a bit like saying, when I become Prime Minister, I will make it illegal in future to vote Tory. I mean, that's the size of it, isn't it? It is trying to fix the vote in his direction in a shameless and blatant way. And as I say, left-wing commentators who are behind Keir all the way feel uncomfortable about this, and I do too, don't you?
Yeah, I think, it clearly is an insight into the mind of Keir Starmer, isn't it? That this is a priority for him, that he's thinking about not just this election, but the next election and beyond. Now, what I think, Kevin, is okay, you may have an argument for giving votes to 16-year-olds, for example. You have to be consistent in that. So if you're saying that somebody at 16 is of the age where they are of the sound kind of mind, they are perfectly capable of making big decisions about the future of this country, whether we go to war or not, for example, whether we during Brexit would they have voted in or out, and all those kind of huge decisions that have generational impact. If you're saying 16-year-olds have the capacity to do that, then you are effectively saying they are adults. Now, if you're saying they're adults, you should be able to let them smoke. They should be able to choose to have a pint in
Good
the pub.
point.
They should be able to choose to serve on the front line in the army, which they cannot do. There is no consistency. If they are adults, treat them as adults. But if they're not, they're not. And that is the problem with right at the heart of this. You're saying these 16-year-olds are able to make these massive decisions about everything to do with Britain's future, but not about their own future, and it just doesn't make any sense.
And I think the difficulty is that 16-year-olds, I mean, a lot of 16-year-olds fully worthy of the vote, very intelligent, thinking young people, but a lot of them, I mean, they barely get out of bed. Going to school is a tough task for them, and the only thing they're really interested in is when Love Island starts tonight. So it's not the ones who are in the army or are out there earning money. It's the ones who are still at school. It seems a bit odd that some
Yeah.
kid in his or her school uniform, sitting there in the classroom, flicking
Yeah.
blotting paper at the teacher. Next stop is the polling booth. It's a bit odd, isn't it?
It doesn't make any sense, does it? But actually, I really am in favour of 16-year-olds being 16-year-olds. They should be able to play on the computer games or go out with their friends or do all the things that kids do. Do we want them to be adults at 16? I'm sure we do. And so actually, you're taking away a little bit of that, that freedom of childhood. Let them carry on playing the computer games. I don't mind.
It's another very good point you've made there, Sam. Yeah, I mean, why plunge these poor kids into the grim and boring world of politics when they can have a couple of years not even thinking about it? And by the way, they might be like what I suspect is the majority of the country and spend their whole of the rest of their lives not thinking about it. People keep going on about these TV debates. The first one, Starmer versus Sunak, was up in Leeds, wasn't it, or something? And they go, oh, what an order! Nearly 5 million people. My first thought there is, so that 65 million didn't watch it. Hang on, something wrong about this picture. Quick word from you, if you don't mind, Sam, on this poll that's just come out, predicting a 256 seat majority for Starmer and Labour, and that Grant Shapps, Penny Mordaunt, Gillian Keegan, Johnny Mercer, Jacob Rees-Mogg, all Tory big beasts, would lose their seats. Chancellor Jeremy Hunt may lose his in Godalming and Ash. And James Cleverly and Kemi Badenoch are predicted to possibly hold on, but only just. The good news, perhaps, depending on which side of things you come from, Jeremy Corbyn is predicted to lose Islington North, which he's represented since 1983, obviously no longer for Labour. So your thoughts on that? It also predicts that Nigel Farage will win Clacton, and I think that is true. But these key big beast figures who may go down will be the emblem, won't they, of this catastrophic Tory campaign.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, this is just another poll of misery, isn't it, for the Conservative Party? The fact that Kemi Badenoch is even mentioned, she has a huge majority, well into the 20,000s. So clearly it will be of massive concern for the people running the campaign. I think, does it really feel like we are going to have that size of majority for Labour? I would be astounded if we get anywhere near that. But clearly, they do need to think about the last 2 weeks of the campaign and really going for it.
Yeah, they could do with perhaps improving the Tory campaign a little bit. It has a pretty low bar to set. Sam, always great to talk to you. Thank you very much for your time. Sam Lister, their political editor of the Daily Express.